Okay, man, I'm actually a little early today. It's not even 2 o'clock yet. I have this computer box for my current new computer, which is a beautiful thing. I'm 6-boxing on EverQuest, playing 6 accounts at once. This is an old pink lion thing. Kung Fu Gopher. I need some batteries. He worked for a long time. Little bubble. Broken American flag. I'll fix it. Brought my Lovecraft book back. I couldn't read it in here yesterday because there was a person in the next unit. I didn't want to bother her. A Warrior's Journey. Dragonlance. Some kind of D&D book. The Great Green was denser than any forest Toll had ever seen. Is that good writing? I don't know. This is a great little book. The Iron Tonic by Edward Gorey. The Bracingly Bleak Tale, or A Winter Afternoon in Lonely Valley. This is a great book. It's so dark. Give you one page. Pen and ink illustrations. One of these days I'll read this whole book. Let's see. Buck teeth. Very useful. Trans Am. Slug. T from the Scrabble game. Fossil little canister. Oh my goodness. Policeman. This is great. I got this in Salt Lake City, Utah. LDS Temple Magnet. Great. I spent $1 on that, but I'm glad I did. This is cool. Famous Monsters of Filmland. Lovecraft Lives. See, there he is. The Prophet of Providence, Lovecraft from Beyond. Winter is Coming, Game of Thrones, The Wizard, the Witch, and the Horcrux. Imagine maybe Pickman's Model. Alright, that's cool. Alright. My goodness. Oh. Beyond the Wall of Sleep, page 38 of this book. As Slater grew older, it appeared his matutinal aberrations had gradually increased in frequency and violence, till about a month before his arrival at the institution had occurred the shocking tragedy which caused his arrest by the authorities. One day near noon, after profound sleep begun in a whiskey debauch at about 5 of the previous afternoon, the man had roused himself most suddenly with ululations so horrible and unearthly that they brought several neighbors to his cabin, a filthy sty where he dwelt with a family as indescribable as himself. Rushing out into the snow, he had flung his arms aloft and commenced a series of leaps directly upward in the air, the while shouting his determination to reach some big cabin with brightness in the roof and walls and floor, and the loud, queer music far away. As 2 men of moderate size sought to restrain him, he had struggled with maniacal force and fury. screaming of his desire and need to find and kill a certain thing that shines and shakes and laughs. At length, after temporarily felling one of his detainers with a sudden blow, he had flung himself upon the other in a demoniac ecstasy of bloodthirstiness, shrieking fiendishly that he would jump high in the air and burn his way through anything that stopped him. Family and neighbors had now fled in a panic, and when the more courageous of them returned, Slater was gone, leaving behind an unrecognizable pulp-like thing that had been a living man but an hour before. None of the mountaineers had dared to pursue him, and it is likely that they would have welcomed his death from the cold. But when several mornings later they heard his screams from a distant ravine, they realized that he had somehow managed to survive, and that his removal in one way or another would be necessary. Then had followed an armed searching party whose purpose, whatever it may have been originally, became that of a sheriff's posse after one of the seldom popular state troopers had by accident observed, then questioned, and finally joined the seekers. On the third day, Slater was found unconscious in the hollow of a tree and taken to the nearest gaol, Gaol, where alienists from Albany examined him as soon as his senses returned. To them he told a simple story. He had, he said, gone to sleep one afternoon about sundown after drinking much liquor. He had awaked to find himself standing bloody-handed in the snow before his cabin, the mangled corpse of his neighbor, Peter Slater, at his feet. Horrified, he had taken to the woods in a vague effort to escape from the scene of what must have been his crime. Beyond these things, he seemed to know nothing, nor could the expert questioning of his interrogators bring out a single additional fact. That night, Slater slept quietly, and the next morning he wakened with no singular feature, save a certain alteration of expression. Dr. Bernard, who had been watching the patient, thought he noticed in the pale blue eyes a certain gleam of peculiar quality, and in the flaccid lips an all but imperceptible tightening, as if of intelligent determination. But when questioned, Slater relapsed into the habitual vacancy of the mountaineer, and only reiterated what he had said on the preceding day. On the third morning occurred the first of the man's mental attacks. After some show of uneasiness and sleep, he burst forth into a frenzy so powerful that the combined efforts of 4 men were needed to bind him in a straitjacket. The alienists listened with keen attention to his words, since their curiosity had been aroused to a high pitch by the suggestive yet mostly conflicting and incoherent stories of his family and neighbors. Slater raved for upward of 15 minutes, babbling in his backwoods dialect of great edifices of light, oceans of space, strange music, and shadowy mountains and valleys. But most of all did he dwell upon some mysterious blazing entity that shook and laughed and mocked at him. This vast, vague personality seemed to have done him a terrible wrong, and to kill it in triumphant revenge was his paramount desire. In order to reach it, he said, he would soar through abysses of emptiness, burning every obstacle that stood in his way. Thus ran his discourse until, with the greatest suddenness, he ceased. The fire of madness died from his eyes, and in dull wonder he looked at his questioners and asked why he was bound. Dr. Bernard unbuckled the leathern harness and did not restore it till night, when he succeeded in persuading Slater to don it of his own volition for his own good. The man had now admitted that he sometimes talked queerly, though he knew not why. Within a week, 2 more attacks appeared, but from them the doctors learned little. On the source of Slater's visions they speculated at length, for since he could neither read nor write, and had apparently never heard a legend or fairy tale, his gorgeous imagery was quite inexplicable. That it could not come from any known myth or romance was made especially clear by the fact that the unfortunate lunatic expressed himself only in his own simple manner. He raved of things he did not understand and could not interpret, things which he claimed to have experienced, but which he could not have learned through any normal or connected narration. The alienists soon agreed that abnormal dreams were the foundation of the trouble, dreams whose vividness could for a time completely dominate the waking mind of this basically inferior man. With due formality, Slater was tried for murder, acquitted on the ground of insanity, and committed to the institution wherein I held so humble a post. It's funny because Lovecraft never really had a job. He was offered an editorship. He didn't want to do it. He really just did not want to work any kind of job, even if it meant just a couple of bucks. He just wanted to stay true to his writing. I mean, I thought, hey, dig a ditch, work at a grocery market, anything, just for a couple hours. But Lovecraft refused, even when he really needed money. Alright, that's it for today.